Hello, how are you doing? And welcome back to the channel. 5 reasons for England fans to feel positive this Six Nations. That's what I'm focusing on in this video because in my opinion, and I'm going to explain this in more detail in just a moment, but I think you can see what England are trying to do. I know that it's not great at the moment, but I do think there are reasons overall for England fans to feel positive so far this Six Nations, which I think kind of flies in the face of general sentiment at the moment. I think there is a little bit of negativity out there. So in this video, I'm going to give you 5 reasons to stay positive about England. Do like and subscribe to the channel as well. Always really appreciate that. And drop your comment down below as well. I know I haven't uploaded a video over the weekend giving my immediate reaction to that Wales game, but give me your thoughts on the game and your thoughts on England 3 games into the Steve Borthwick era. Do drop a comment down below. All right, let's get into it. So yes, apologies for no uploads over the weekend. It was just one of those occasions where a combination of work and other factors got in the way that I didn't really have a chance to sit down and properly record a video and give my immediate reaction to matches. I was covering the Italy-Ireland game, although unfortunately I didn't get the opportunity to actually go to Rome to cover that one. But it means that I've kind of taken a step back really from the immediate reaction to England's victory over Wales in Cardiff, first victory for them in Cardiff in a while, and kind of just looked at things a little bit more because as I said in the intro, I do understand England's fans' frustrations. And in fact, my number one point here in terms of reasons to feel positive is England aren't great, but they aren't terrible either. There are obvious signs of improvements in the Steve Borthwick era. You can begin to see what they're trying to do, and there have already been a number of areas in the game which I think are starting to improve. And the other point with this as well is we can't compare England at this moment in time to, say, Ireland and France, or even Scotland, the 3 best teams you would have thought really from what we've seen so far in the Six Nations. You can't compare them to those teams because they are all in a different period of their development. They are all in at least the 4th year with their head coach, building towards a World Cup, and they've had all that time together to bed in, to get through those teething problems, whereas England are 3 games in, realistically. So you can't quite compare them, I don't think, to the best teams in the world at the moment, but from where they were, I think there are definite signs of improvement. So they've won their last 2 games, and in both of those, you've seen improvement. And at the moment, really, they're playing in a way to get them wins. And that gives them a platform to build upon. It means week in, week out, they can continue to tick over, work out what they're doing well and build upon it. So I just think if you look at what England are doing, it kind of makes sense at the moment. But let's get into the actual nuts and bolts of what I've seen and what I think is working. Because my second point here is England's kicking game is, for the most part, working. And this might, I think, be controversial to a lot of people. I think there's a lot of people out there who have got so sick of England kicking the ball away, which started in the Eddie Jones era, that it also doesn't matter what happens now. The moment they see England kick it, they're getting frustrated. They want to see them run it in the way that Scotland or even Italy and teams who are showing a little bit more ambition at the moment. And whilst I think it's working, and I'll explain why in just a moment, I completely agree that the kicking it into the corner when you have ball in hand in your opponent's 22 is frustration. I'm not necessarily talking about that, but overall, I think in the first 3 games of this Six Nations, it flies in the face of the general sentiment out there, but I believe that England's kicking game has worked for them because I think, and you can include the Scotland game in this that they lost, that the reason they kick is to gain territory. And there have been countless occasions now where the result of the kicking game has resulted in England having a line out, having possession higher up the pitch than they would have done otherwise. And there are obvious examples that you can point to. The Van der Merwe solo try from his own half where England kicked it away to him. There wasn't someone immediately in his face. He ends up, scoring a brilliant try. And a couple of other occasions. But actually that Van der Merwe try, whilst the kick wasn't great and the chase wasn't as on point, was more about the tackling in the midfield, I think, in my opinion. And I think that England's kicking game, as I say, is doing what they want it to do. And people might not want them to kick it, but it is being effective for the most part. It's not perfect. I've already said that I don't think England are perfect at the moment, but I actually think the kicking game is doing good for them. I will also accept that Owen Farrell's kicking percentage, it's below 50% now, isn't it? Off the tee, he has been poor this Six Nations. But I just think also we've got enough body of evidence to suggest he will put that right. I still think Owen Farrell he will put that right. You can't be leaving 10 points out there as he did against Wales. I completely get that. You can throw that at me in the comments if you want. But I just believe he'll improve. I don't believe it's something to be a long-term concern, put it that way anyway. So kicking game for me is generally working. Number 3, the squad is settled. And I thought about this particularly in comparison to, say, Wales, which is quite a good team to compare against England because they've both had new head coaches come in for this Six Nations. And I think if you think about this England squad now, we can debate positions. We can debate who we would want in the back row because England have loads of good options in the back row. But I actually think you can name the starting 15 pretty comfortably at the moment. And that's happened in quite a short space of time. And I'll continue to do the videos on this channel where I will say this would be my England 23 for the upcoming game. And there'll be always a great debate in the comments. And as I say, there'll always be positions that some people think maybe Dombrandt isn't the right number 8, or some people might like a different combination in the back 3. But I think generally speaking, actually, we all kind of know what this England team is going to be. And compare that to Wales, who are in turmoil at the moment. I mean, who do you think should be in that Wales starting 15? Because I think it's very difficult to know who the nailed-on starters should be. You've got the likes of Jack Morgan. There's probably a few other guys in there, maybe a Reece Samet or a Josh Adams. But I think across the pitch for Wales, there is uncertainty. They don't know what their best front row is. Do they go for the best scrummagers or the best props around the park? In the second row, what do they do there with an ageing Alan Wynne-Jones or a younger Dafydd Jenkins? The back row's the same. I think England actually are relatively settled at this moment in time. As I say, I know there'll always be debate and discussion, but I don't know, I just feel like England selection-wise at this moment in time, 3 games into the Borthwick era, are in a good place. And there's been a good mixture of transition when we look at Ben Youngs has kind of dropped out. Mitchell's coming through. I'd like to see Mitchell start, but he's coming in. Marcus Smith's now on the bench. Owen Farrell's gone to 10. Again, I know that's something some people will debate, but I don't know. I just feel like there's solidity there, generally speaking. So I'm pleased about that. Number 4, the defence is on the up. Maro Itoje made 19 tackles against Wales. Owen Farrell made 17. That's an important point, by the way. A lot of people who like to knock Owen Farrell, I think, ignore what he gives you defensively compared to any other fly half England have. If you play Marcus Smith or George Ford at fly half, that's a defensive weakness. With Owen Farrell, that's not the case. And there's a number of other players. I mean, I think the back row for England has been outstanding with Ludlam and Jack Willis. If Laws comes back in, if Tom Curry comes back in, Ben Curry, who's been in and out, I just think there's so many good options there in that back row. I think England defensively have been pretty good, apart from that Scotland game, really, which is where they tended to get a bit more stretched in the final 20 minutes, really, and Scotland came back into it. England were in a position to win, but I think they've progressively improved defensively in all the games they've had. If you think about the Scotland game, I think they had moments of good defensive work, the Van der Merwe try obviously being an anomaly there, and also the way Scotland got back into it. Then you come into the Italy game, for the most part, again, England really good defensively for an hour or so, then they loosened up just a little bit, and again against Wales, they improved again. So I think the defence each game has improved. And then the final point, really, in fact, actually 18 dominant tackles against Wales, by the way, compared with 2 dominant tackles for Wales, which I think just shows you where England's defence is maybe compared again with a team who had a new head coach come in the Six Nations. I think England is just that little bit further along. They are bringing physicality. They are being dominant in the hits. Whether that's good enough against Ireland and France, maybe not, because I don't think they're there yet, but they are improving. Final point as well, final point here, number 5, discipline is improving as well. They conceded 6 penalties against Wales. It was 10 against Scotland and it was 7 against Italy. And I think particularly the 6 and the 7, even when Eddie Jones's side were winning games, I still just felt like the penalty count was higher than that. I think discipline became an issue. I think it's automatically somewhere England are making strides there, not quite giving teams the easy out and the field position that they were previously under Eddie Jones. So I think that's getting better. I think defence is getting better. I think the squad's settled. I think the kicking game is working better than people think. And I admit, whilst they aren't great, they aren't terrible either. This is an England side I think it is very clear that they are trying to build. It's a slow process. If we want to compare them to France and Ireland, I agree. They're way off. But from where they were 3 games ago at the start of the Six Nations, I think there is reason to be positive. Let me know what you think in the comments down below. I'm sure there will be many people who perhaps disagree with me over this, particularly the whole kicking thing. But I think it's interesting. I do think that yeah, I just feel more positive about England than I think a lot of people do. So you can explain to me in the comments why I've got this horribly wrong, or you can agree with me, but let me know what you think. Like the video and also subscribe to the channel, and I'll see you in the next one. Nice one.